Hello and welcome to Let's Build Something. My name is Mike Chambers, machine learning hero and member of the AWS community and all things like that. You know me by now. And I'm really happy to be joined today by Paxton. Paxton, hi. Paxton Hall, you're a program manager with AWS and you're sitting in for Safdar, who can't be with us today.
You got it. Coming in from Seattle, Washington here. Excited to finally join. I've been behind the scenes on this series for, oh man, what, a month now we've been doing this?
Yeah,
So
I think maybe even a
fun
little more,
to,
yeah.
yeah, fun to
You've
be
been
here
there
live.
behind, like making sure everything works and like, yeah, awesome organization. So thank you very much for that. As we reach this, which is essentially the end of this series, we'll talk more about that as we go. So thank you very much. Keeping an eye on the chat for us today. Hello, Paxton. Thank you. And also Jeff Zemerick from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Part of the builders community, very much in and around machine learning. Jeff, hi, how are you?
Hi, good. Thanks. Happy to be here. Happy to meet you guys and take part and look forward to some awesome coding today.
Yeah, well, I'll try. So yeah, we are at this point in this series, and I'm calling it sort of a series. We've gone through this staged setup of building this product all the way from initial concept all the way through to today. We're going to get something running in production and live, and it's going to be something that everybody gets to play with. So I'll actually be putting a link into the chat today, so that hopefully you get to actually have a play around with this as well. So this code is well and truly absolutely live. Hello to everybody joining the live stream. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know where you're from. We'll give you a quick shout out at the beginning of this as well. If you're joining us on the recorded afterwards, then hello to you too. Please do drop a comment below the video as well, especially if you've got any questions. These sessions generally are ask me, ask us anything kinds of sessions. So ask away your questions. We'll do our best to answer them. We'll also get some coding done and this solution up. And we'll talk to Jeff as well about his journey into machine learning, tips and tricks he's got for you to get into machine learning as well, and some of the awesome projects that Jeff's involved with as well. So maybe before we jump into the way of coding or anything like that, let me jump to this screen here where I can remind us or remind me potentially that sometimes when I'm going this live that I need to set up my video so that you can all see it as well. So whilst I do that, we've been set up for this for so long. I've been sat there waiting to have this all join, and I forget to do this. So give me 1 second. Everybody else where's my screen gone? There it is. And copy that link. Off to a great start. So because what I want to do is I basically want to show you what the architecture is that we're doing today. So hopefully that goes excellently. It does. Thank you. Can you see this now? Yes, you can. Marvelous. Basically, this is what we've been doing for a little while now. And you may remember this from earlier on in the discussion. We're creating a solution where we have a mobile app. This is supposed to represent a mobile phone. We take a photograph of a thing. And so I've been saying, okay, this is going to be a coffee cup, or sorry, a tea mug. So there's a tea mug, taking a picture there. We send that picture off over to AWS Machine Learning. It then sends a response back and says what it is. In this case, it's a cup of tea. And we've done a lot of this build so far. We put together the whole of this this data set. So we put together the data set. We curated the data set and we put it into AWS. We've trained our machine learning model. What we're going to look at today is the final piece here, the final piece in the puzzle, where we're going to connect up this running AWS machine learning environment to an application running on of a phone. It's going to be a web app, so everybody's going to be able to have a go with this. Where did you learn at first to get you all more confident in AWS and machine learning? Look, this is a great question. It was things like this. It was YouTube videos. It was getting into machine learning in general, searching around for bits and pieces like that. I might throw this question to Jeff as well. Can I throw you? Doesn't throw you into the deep end here?
Absolutely.
Where did you get your initial connection and boost into machine learning?
So it came from a job about 10, 12 years ago. We had a problem, and the best way to get into something is find something that you want to fix, that you have a challenge. and it's hard to get into something if you don't have a reason. But when you have that reason, so if you're just getting into it, a project like this is great. Find something that you like and you enjoy, and just get in there and start playing around.
Absolutely. Do you know, and I've said this as well, I think I absolutely agree with that. When you're working with a machine learning problem, part of the team that comes together to sort of solve machine learning problems is a domain expert, right? Someone who actually understands about the information that you're dealing with. And so if you can find something that you're already a domain expert in, something that you're interested in, or some small little project that you can grasp, then hack on that, have a go with that, build something. And yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what we're doing here today, right? So no, that's really cool. Cool question. Thanks for that. So I just want to show you where we're at. So hopefully that overview diagram wasn't too quick, but basically we're creating this mobile web app that we're going to use to create, to do some machine learning inference with the model that we've created in previous weeks. So if you haven't seen those, then don't go to watch it now, but have a look afterwards. We'll sort you out. All the links are going to be available in the description to this video as well. What we're looking at here is the GitHub repository, where all of the code is for this series that we're putting together. And in the past, what I've done is I've taken the code that we've put together during a given session, and I've pushed it up into GitHub so that you've got it after the fact. What I've done this time around is slightly different. I've got all of the code that we're going to be using this week inside of episode 6, which is down here. And there is some stuff in here. There's also some notes, which I am going to be following myself in this session today. So we make sure that we've got everything and working, and everything's going to work fine today. It's going to be cool. So all of the code's already there. So feel free to grab that. The link to that is in the description below this video if you want to follow along. If you just want to just watch and just to take it all in, sit back with your cup of tea. I've always got my cup of tea. However, I won't be sitting back. Okay, so that's what you can do. Let's jump into my AWS environment just to make sure we're all on the same page as to what I've got set up so far, so we can sort of get going and see how things work. I've got here my notebook instance. This is the instance we set up way back at the beginning. It's currently up and running, and here it is. I've also got all of the GitHub code inside of this repository, inside of this running notebook as well. So here is episode 6 with those files that we were looking at just a second ago. I've also got inside of SageMaker, I've got the endpoint up and running already, because we know this takes a few minutes to get this up and running. We looked at this last week and kind of the week before as well, but it's up and running now, and hopefully everything should be fine. There are a few things that we need to sort of take note from here, and we'll do that as we go forward. So let me just grab this, bring this over to another screen here so it's not out of our way, and I'll come back into here. And yeah, I think we're kind of ready to go, right? We're ready to do this. We're ready to build what is necessary. So maybe before we jump into writing code, I'm going to draw another picture. If you just give me a sec, I'm just going to draw one more picture. And this is going to be just what we're going to build today. And so this is how we're going to get the connectivity from the mobile app, the mobile web app, which is going to be running over here on the phone, and our AWS machine learning, which is obviously running up in AWS Cloud. Okay, it's over there. So the question here is, how do we sort of fill this gap in between here? So up until this point, when we have tested our machine learning model, we've done that inside of AWS. So inside of our notebook running inside of AWS, or inside of the command line, which is running within the context of AWS. This phone here, which, by the way, we're going to do this. I have my phone here. This phone here is not inside of AWS. It's on the worldwide internet. It's out there somewhere. So we need to bridge this connection. So we have our SageMaker endpoint inside of the world of AWS. It's ready to connect. What we do is this. We set up an API gateway. See, I should have given myself some more space there. Can I delete this with that? No, I can't. Okay, we're going to have an API gateway. And this is an AWS API gateway. The phone is going to make a connection to that. The API gateway then is going to make a connection to a Lambda function. And if you've been working in AWS for any amount of time, you'll no doubt come across Lambda functions. They are the Swiss Army knife, if you like, of AWS. You can do almost anything you like with them. So this API gateway is going to take the connection, take the request. This image, the image is actually going to be sent to the API gateway. The API gateway is going to give it to the Lambda function. The Lambda function is going to use our code, our machine learning code, our SageMaker endpoint. It's going to say, what is this? The answer is going to come back to Lambda. It's going to go back to the API gateway, and it's going to go back to our app running on a phone. The app running on the phone itself, the code that runs on the phone, is going to be served up out of an S3 bucket, because S3 is the simplest and easiest way to set up any website inside of AWS. No server that you need to look at or manage. In fact, this entire architecture here is serverless. So this is what we're going to do. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I think maybe we just need to crack on with making this happen. So let me do that. Let me start to bring things together, and then we'll jump in with Jeff and we'll talk more about his projects and bits and pieces as well. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to create the Lambda function that is going to do that connection for us. So let's jump over into the AWS console. I'm going to type in Lambda or thereabouts. I'm going to right click on that and open it up in a new tab. Now, one thing you need to do as well is you need to make sure that the region you're working in is the region that you have your SageMaker endpoint connected currently. I'm going to be doing everything in Sydney because that's closest to me and it works in Sydney. If in doubt, use US East 1 because that's where everybody works. But most regions around the world, this is going to work for you. So let's jump through the hoops of creating a Lambda function. We don't have to actually write the code because it's all available for us in the GitHub repository. But we can talk through briefly what the code does. So let's go ahead and say create function. I'm going to say that I want to build this from scratch. I'm going to call it LBS for let's build something, and then -app, because that's basically the naming that I'm going to be using today. And then we're going to choose Python 3.9. Python is what we're using. 3.9 is the latest version. May as well use that. This is a really interesting one down here, actually. Architecture type here. Interested, Jeff, if you've sort of had a play around with this yet. But Lambda functions have recently supported AMD architecture, which makes your Lambda function potentially cheaper to run than it was before. Not that it was expensive before, but yeah, played around with AMD much?
Not in Lambda, but I have an EC2.
Yeah.
Using the new EC2 instances for ARM is really nice and got the cost savings and the performance. So yeah, they're really cool to check out.
Absolutely. Well, I've had a play around here, literally with this code. I know that it does work in ARM. You do obviously need to be conscious of compatibility issues with libraries that you're using and stuff, but this one works fine. So let's go ahead and say I'm going to use ARM for the sake of it. And then I'm going to scroll down and say create function. That's going to create as a very generic function, which has got generic permissions, and there are some things that we're going to have to go and tweak. But I've clicked that button, and hopefully at some point it'll go back and give me my empty Lambda function. Here it is. So let's scroll down, and this is obviously I'm zoomed in quite a bit here, so hopefully that you can see on the stream, but this is where the Lambda function code is. I'm going to get rid of all of that, and I'm going to go over to my GitHub repository. So I'll do that by going into the Jupyter Notebook environment that we've got. Let's make that slightly bigger. If you go into the Lambda function folder, and if you go into lambda function.py, this is the code that we're going to use here. So I'm going to select all of it from here, and then I'm going to copy and paste it over, and then we'll talk about what that code is. So let's go back to the Lambda function and paste that in. And essentially, it's a fairly straightforward function. It doesn't do a lot of processing here. What it's going to do is it's going to use the SageMaker runtime. That's what it's loading up at the top there. It grabs in out of the body the actual image, which is being sent to it when the API is being invoked. So when the API is invoked, it sends this image to the endpoint. So it grabs that, and it's then going to send it to our SageMaker endpoint. And you see in the code here, it's actually got endpoint name goes here. And so I'm going to replace this with the name of the endpoint that I've got in SageMaker. So I'm going to go to SageMaker tab that I've got open here. The endpoint name is literally here. It's LBS_app. So it's not the ARN. It's nothing very complicated. It's no URL or anything like that. It's just the name that we gave it when we created it. And again, We created our endpoint configuration over the last couple of weeks. So if you're interested as to how that happens, then I'll get you to look back at those previous videos. But we can talk. I mean, if you've got questions, we can talk to that now. So let's go ahead and paste that in here. And so that's in there. That's literally all we have to do. The rest of the code is going to do all we need. The response basically comes back. We have to do a bit of manipulation of the response. This is exactly the same kind of code that we looked at last week again, where we read that stream that comes back from the SageMaker endpoint. But we're going to split it up, and we're actually going to pass the JSON structure back with essentially the 3 values, right? So we are doing a classifier for 3 different image classifications, and it will come back with 3 numbers for the 3 values of essentially the 3 output neurons from that neural network. We'll see this in more detail as we go through this session. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about there, then ask questions and we'll make it work. So let's go ahead. We've got that set up now. I'm going to click deploy. So that code's now saved into that Lambda function. The next thing that I need to do is I need to go to change some of the permissions for this Lambda function. This Lambda function needs to be able to call SageMaker and the SageMaker runtime. So we're going to allow it to do that because right now it can't. So if we go to configuration, and then we scroll down here and we go to permissions, and then well, don't need to scroll down, it's right here. This role name, this role was created for this Lambda function during that sort of wizard process that we were on just a moment ago. So I'm going to go ahead and click this expand out button to get into identity and access management so we can have a look at the permissions that we've got set up here. Now, Jeff, what I'm about to do here is bad. Maybe you can explain to people why this is bad, but I'm just going to add, you know what I'm going to do already, don't you? You can tell. I'm going to go and add SageMaker full access to this function so that it's got access to do what it needs to do. So with permissions here, at the moment, we've got this basic execution role, which gives it the Lambda function the ability to be able to log into CloudWatch, for example. So I'm going to go to attach policies and search for SageMaker full access. Why is this a bad idea, Jeff? Why is this a bad idea?
You want to keep your permissions as fine-grained as possible, but I think you are responsible, and you clearly told people this is a bad idea. Do it for testing, don't do it for production. So I think you're okay there.
Yeah, so this is going to be up for what, a short period of time while we're sort of playing around with it in this session. What you absolutely, as Jeff said, you should scope this down much more tightly so that it's just so the Lambda function just has permissions to do what it needs to do, which is just call that endpoint. But for the brevity and for the sake of time, I'm giving it SageMaker full access. So let's say attach policy and move on. Okay, so we have our Lambda function up and ready to go. Cool. So that's the Lambda function created. The next thing to do is to work on the API. Jeff, maybe we can talk to you a little bit as we sort of get into the API gateway and stuff as well. Maybe you should tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you work on, because you've sat there patiently. You've got all this wealth of knowledge, and I need to talk to you as well. So what tell us a little bit about the projects that you work on and what you do in the machine learning space.
Sure. So machine learning, I got my start in natural language processing about 10 years ago or so through the Apache OpenNLP project. And so if you are looking for a way to get into machine learning and a way to learn, look for open source projects. They're a great way to find a community to help you find a project in your interest area and reach out to them and you can learn. And so I got started with OpenNLP. Today, I'm the current chair of the project. So if anybody has any interest in NLP and you would like to get started, please reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to help you and give you a rundown of how things work. And there's, of course, a lot more to machine learning than just NLP images that you've seen here. So there's a lot of ways you can go. So just find what you're interested in and go down that route and learn all you can in practice.
So I've got OpenNLP up here. So it's openNLP.apache.org. I'll put a link to that below this video once we've done with the live stream too. And maybe Jeff, if you've got some contact details or some way that people can get in touch with you, we can put those link in below as well. What's the best way? Is it LinkedIn or?
You find me on LinkedIn. It is probably the easiest way. Just search for me. I think I'm probably the only one with that name, so it shouldn't be too hard to find.
Yeah.
But yeah, happily, I'll be glad to teach anyone as much time as we need to. Just feel free to reach out.
Awesome, Jeff. Thank you. No, so Jeff Zemerick, your full name
Yes.
is not currently up on screen, but we'll definitely have a link to it beneath this video as well. And yeah, let's loop back to NLP as well, and the kinds of things that you can do with NLP in a bit, because yeah, absolutely, machine learning is basically data, right? Like any kind of data you have, machine learning has something to say about it. We're doing imagery here, as you say, but NLP, words. There are some really exciting things happening in the NLP space as well. So great to get your perspective on that. Let's move on to the next step here. Step 2 is to basically create the API gateway. So we have a Lambda function, which is going to do the heavy lifting, if you like. Actually, it's going to do the glue work of gluing the service call through to SageMaker. Here we're going to set up our API gateway. So I am zoomed in a little bit here, but I can still follow along. We're going to create an HTTP API. It's the cheapest type of API gateway, basically, that you can build, and it's perfectly sufficient for us. So I'm going to click build there. I might just zoom out slightly. There we go. It's now asking me for an integration. So this API is saying, okay, well, when I receive calls come in, what's going to handle that call? And the answer to that is going to be our Lambda function. So if I click the add integration button and then say from there, I want it to be Lambda, it's already got the region that I'm in currently selected. I can click here and there is my Lambda function. It's as easy as that. So it's already in there. I only have one Lambda function in this region, in this account. So it's very easy. I'm going to leave everything else as is, but I do need an API name. And from the best of my recollection, this is just for our own reference, but I'll be LBS, let's build something hyphen app. I'm going to basically keep most of the names similar in here. So I'm going to click next on that. It then says, okay, well, what about the routes or the routes? It depends on what part of the world you're from as to whether you say routes, like when I'm back in the UK, or routes when I'm in Australia. But anyway, when we have an incoming connection, how are we going to map this, if you like? And the key thing here is the method. We want to put this to post. So it's when a post comes in, the image is going to be posted with HTTP method post. It's going to come in on the resource path. It's currently set to LBS app, which I'm fine with, and it's going to go to that integration that we've just selected. So if we wanted to have a different resource path, as in / something, then we could put that here, but we're not going to do that. Just going to click next. It's going to do auto deployments for us. So we're very happy with that. We're going to click next, review, and click create. That seems to me a lot easier than it used to be. I have to say, when I came and looked at the API gateway interface afresh, after having not looked at it for a few months, I noticed that it had completely changed, and it doesn't look anything like it used to look at all. A couple of things I kind of miss, but it is fairly straightforward now. Just to go click, 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 and you've got an API. So this API will now be available to the outside world, so we can integrate our machine learning model, hopefully now, with code running in the outside world. How easy is that? Do you remember that, Jeff? The API interface used to be quite different to that.
I do, and I also remember before API Gateway when you had to roll all this stuff yourself. So it's really nice just seeing how simple it is now.
Isn't it just? It was quite a shock. It was a bit of a learning step change for me. It's like, oh, hang on a minute. All right, so we have that. We're doing awesome guns here. Like, I'm hoping what we're going to be able to do is we're going to get this solution up and running. We're going to be playing around with it, and then we can have a lot more of a conversation in just a moment as well. What I'm going to do now is going to build the app/website. Now, if you look inside of the GitHub repository, which we're sort of using our Jupyter Notebook to view that because the code's currently in there. If I go back to episode 6, there's a folder in here called S3 website, because that's exactly what it's going to be for. And here is that code. So we have the app.js, some background images, and some HTML and all that kind of stuff. So we need to get this up into that S3 bucket. And thinking about that now, that's going to be probably the easiest way for me to do that is to do some drag and drop. So what I might do is grab this and put it down onto my machine here, because I've just said how working in Jupyter is easier. But let's go back into GitHub as in the page. And if you've already downloaded this repository, or you can just pull this repository again, then do that. But what I'm going to do here is go to, let's build something at the top level. I'm going to say code, and I'm going to download the whole thing as a zip file to my local machine. We'll grab that. And so that'll be somewhere on my machine ready for me in the next part that we need. So I've got all of that code essentially on my machine now. It makes it easier. Let's jump into S3. So I'm going to go into the S3 service here in the console. And oops, I opened it up in a new tab. That's my force of habit, is I generally tend to open up new things in AWS in a new tab. So I don't end up with loads and loads of tabs at the end of a session, but I can always switch backwards and forwards between things. One day I'll get a plugin which will plug in for the browser so that whenever I click on a new service, it just opens in a new tab anyway. Someone go make that, please. So here we are in S3. I'm going to go ahead and create a bucket, and we're creating this bucket to host a website. Super easy way of hosting a website in AWS. I'm going to call it AWS-app. If you are following along right now, then congratulations for keeping up, because I know I'm going fairly fast, but also you're going to have this bucket name being different to my bucket name, because bucket names in AWS are globally unique across all accounts, everything. So I usually just do in this case, LBS app, which is what I really want to call it. And then I just write a couple of pseudo characters in just to make it sort of pseudo random, just to make it kind of randomish. So that should be fine. That should be available. I'm going to create my bucket in this region. It doesn't actually matter what region you create it in, but it may as well make it when one's close to you. This is important though. So it says currently block public access settings for this bucket. So I'm going to uncheck that box. Sounds like maybe that's a bad thing, but it's necessary. So when you create an S3 bucket, AWS is very conscious of the fact that you might want to keep all of that stuff private. In this particular case, we want it to be a website, so we need it to be available. So I'm going to uncheck that checkbox and check this checkbox to say, I acknowledge that this is what I want to do, because it absolutely is. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. I'm going to keep everything else the same and click Create Bucket. And so we are now in the process of, well, we have our bucket made. We now just have to make it be a website. And the way we do that is like this. So I have to scroll down and find the bucket that I just created, because it doesn't sort of plonk you in there. And I just realized that I've already got one. See, I've tried this before. So objects can be, this is the one I've just created by looking at the time. That's the one I created yesterday to make sure this was going to work, because that's how much I care that this works. I created several. Anyway, let's go into the one for today. So this currently is an empty bucket. We're going to go to properties, and we're going to scroll down in properties, and we're going to go all the way to the bottom. And we have this thing here that says static website hosting. We need to turn this on in order that this becomes available to host our website. So I'm going to click edit, and I'm going to click enable. And there are a few things in here we just need to fill out. And what I usually just do is I type in index.html into the index document, and I usually put the same for the error, because why not? So this is basically saying I'm going to use this bucket for static web hosting, and if nobody types in the index document, if you're familiar with website setups and web server setups, then it will send it automatically to index.html, which is exactly what we want. So let's scroll down here and click Save Changes. But there is one more thing we have to do, because at the moment we have a web serving S3 bucket that nobody has permissions to get to. Before, when it was saying public, it was saying can be public. It isn't public yet. So let's go to permissions, and we'll scroll down, and we'll scroll for our scroll down rather, and get to bucket policy. So we're going to create a bucket policy, a security policy here, which makes it available as this public website. So I'm going to click edit on here, and I'm going to put in my bucket policy here. And guess what? We have this already written for us. It's a very generic bucket policy, but let's go to our GitHub repository, whichever way you want to do it. Go into episode 6, go into the README. I knew I put it somewhere. And there is this bucket policy right here. Let me grab this, copy and paste it in, and we can talk very briefly about what it is. Where's S3? Where's S3? I'm lost. It's not there. It's here. Let's paste that in. What this is basically saying is that we're going to allow the principal of anybody, which is this star here. Let me zoom in a bit. To get an object, which is essentially what you're going to need to do. If you're randomly user on the internet with no authentication, you're not known to us, we want to allow you to be able to grab files from this S3 bucket through the web endpoint. So that's what we're allowing. We do, however, need to update this resource ARN. And handily in this view here, we have the ARN just at the top here, this bucket ARN. I can even click this link and it'll copy it to my clipboard. And I need to very carefully paste over just these letters ARN because we need to have the /* at the end. So this ARN is the ARN to the bucket, and the /* says anything inside of the bucket. And you can only get objects from inside of a bucket. So that needs to be there. So with that, let's go and scroll down and click Save Changes. And now we have an S3 bucket, which, as you can see from here, publicly accessible. It's hosting our website. Only there's no code in there yet. So there's just one more thing to do, and that's put the code in. So let's go and find where I put the code on my machine. And I don't know what that is. That's not the code on my machine. So we go down here. Come on, let's go to, where are my downloads? Where is my, all right, hang on a sec. So that code that I downloaded just a second before, basically, is what I need. And here it is. There's my David Bowie files. We don't need to see all that. Let's build something, opening up the folder, and here it is. This will do. So inside of here, I've got the Let's Build Something episode 6. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open that up into Visual Studio Code, and we'll be able to see the files there. Let's open this up and see if that's going to help us out and show us what we need to see. And here are the files, and here is the code that we had. And I'm just doing that in an editor rather than just looking at it in the browser, because there is a thing that we need to change. So basically what we have here is the HTML. I'm not a web developer, but it looks okay. You'll see it shortly. We got some bootstrap stuff going on in there and all the rest of it. And just places where the images can show up and all this kind of stuff. We've also got some test images in here. These are the test images that we've been playing with before. So if you don't have access to images, test images are built into the application. So that's going to be pretty good. But we also have app.js. And this app.js, this is a JavaScript which does the work behind the scenes. Essentially, it'll run on the phone and call the web service endpoint. But in order for it to be able to call the web service endpoint, it needs to know what the URL of the web service endpoint is. And right at the very top of this, you can see API URL goes here. We need to replace this with the URL of the API we've created. Now, if you're following along here and you just want to start now, feel free to use my endpoint. That's fine. However, it's probably going to not be around much longer after the live stream's finished. We'll keep it up for a bit. But otherwise, put your own in there. So let's go back to AWS and have dig around to find what these URLs are going to be. And I have to say, for all the talk that we just had there, Jeff, about how this console works, I'm not actually sure the best way to do this, but there is the invoke URL is here, but this is not the whole thing. So I'm going to copy that. I don't know if this is visible somewhere else that you can sort of click in one go and copy paste it. But I'm going to copy that. I'm going to take this over to the Visual Studio Code. I'm going to paste this in, but we're not done. So we've got the first part. Then we have a slash, and then we have, if you remember, the route or root or whatever it was that we were looking at before. So if we go back into here and go into, just make it so we can all see it. There's this routes over underneath on the develop menu here, and we have this route here. I don't know. I can paste it, copy and paste it. LBS app. That's one of the reasons why I called everything LBS app, so that I just knew what it was going to be. But we need to append this onto the end of our code, so or that particular line. So let's go back in here, and let's go into there and type in LBS app. That should be it. So I press save on that, and now I have my code ready to go. So one thing left to do, and we're going to be done. It's going to work, and I'm really looking forward to this. You heard me. It's going to work. So I'm going to minimize that down, and I'm going to go to my S3 bucket, which is here, and we're going to upload some objects into here. So let's make this a little smaller. So I'm on the Objects tab now. Let's do this. I'm excited. We're going to go to the code that I downloaded onto my machine, into the S3 website bucket. You can see that this is the right one because I've recently edited this file here, this app.js. And yes, it's 10 a.m. where I am. welcome into the future if you're not in this this side of the world. So I'm just going to move this over here just so I've got more space. I've grabbed all those files, and here they all are. I've grabbed them all. I'm going to drop them right onto this console window. It says, right, you want to upload all these files? And I say, I absolutely do. So upload, and it's going to go through now and upload those images into our S3 bucket. Hopefully now we're done. All we have to do now is grab the link. I'll put it into the chat somehow. I haven't figured out how I'm going to get it into the chat at the moment because I've got all these different computers here, but we'll get that. And then we will hopefully see that it works. So let's go into S3, which is where we are. I'm going to click close on here. I'm going to go back to properties, and I'm going to go down to where we were looking before, where we were looking at the static website hosting. And you'll see that down here, it's actually got the URL of where we're hosted. It's a pretty ugly URL, right? And ultimately we would buy a domain name, and we would use CloudFront and all this kind of stuff. And maybe we'll do that. That sounds pretty cool. Not today, maybe next time. Let's copy that. In fact, well, I've copied it, and I'm going to make it available somehow in the chat. I'm going to click this button here, which will open it in another tab. And it looks pretty horrible in this tab because it's really designed to run on a mobile screen. So if I can kind of somehow resize this like this, bring it over, then it'll start to make a bit more sense. It kind of looks kind of right here. Okay. So this is what the app looks like. And down here, you have the opportunity to take a photograph or to upload an image. The idea is that we're taking photographs, and I'll do that in just a second on my phone, and we'll see what that looks like. If you don't have any images, well, several things. First of all, this file is available in the GitHub repository. We are working from these basic icons, right, of hot dog and of tree and of cup of tea. And we're doing that because we're keeping it simple. We're making it something that everybody has access to. Also, it means that our training was quite straightforward as well. These are going to be what we're going to test with. If you don't have access to that right now and you still want to play along with this, there's this link here. No images, no worries. It's sort of built into the application, and this is going to be the first test. Okay, this will work. I'm going to click this, and it does actually then send it off to the endpoint, and hopefully we're going to get a response back. If it works first time, I'm going to be very happy, but we'll see what happens. And if we have to debug, we have to debug. So I'm going to click this. You'll notice that it comes up here, and okay. I'm waiting for this to say T here, and it's not currently saying T there. So, man, I built this up so much. Maybe I shouldn't have done. Now it's time for me to dig into the documentation that I've written and see if I've missed any steps. I don't think I did, or I mistyped something. Jeff, fill in for me here, and talk to me about when you've done projects and they've gone just at the very end here. Whilst I
it wouldn't be fun. Yeah, it wouldn't be any fun if everything worked on the first try. And that's how we learn, right? We learn how we can debug and everything.
Do you know, I think it would be awesome fun if it worked first time. More tools. I'm going to go to developer tools. What it'll say in here almost certainly is that there is a core. Oh, yes. No, I was going to say, right. Okay. Right. I know what it is. So this is the interesting thing. Every time you go into the developer tools in the browser, it says that every problem is a cause problem, the cross-origin request S problem, because every problem looks like a cause problem to it. Do you know what I've actually done in this particular case? I've forgotten to actually set cause on the API. So it is actually cause in this particular case. So, okay, in my haste to get this working, right, let's go back to the API gateway. Over on the left-hand side, we have cause, C-O-R-S. We basically just have to turn on. It's kind of like turning off security, but it's what we kind of need to do in a serverless web hosting world. We have to basically say that it's okay for a browser that's running code from one domain to call this service, which is in another domain. That's my quick and easy way of describing cause anyway. So we'll have to go to configure here. And basically, I'm going to put an asterisk or a star in allow access control allow origin. We're going to allow any origin, so we don't have to lock it down particularly. You do have to click this add button. Then I'm going to say allow any headers. For this sake, I'm fine with that. Add. I'm going to come down to what access methods I'm going to say star from the drop-down menu, and then I'm going to go to access control expose headers, star, click add. So we basically have an asterisk or star in all of these things. Can't believe I forgot that. Okay, let's click save on that. And because this API has auto deploy, basically it will now automatically deploy a new version of that. So Jeff, if you remember from the previous time, you also had to go in and deploy every single change and couldn't figure out what was going on. No more. That doesn't have to happen anymore. All right, now let's see. Now let's see whether I need to go and, right. Obviously it's not working from before. I'm going to go and click the hot dog. Come on now.
There you go.
Thank you and good night. It's actually worked. Slightly anticlimactic, but obviously, yeah, fine. We needed to set the course. So there we go. So if I click T, then hopefully it's going to say T. Yes, it does. So this is actually sending the image off to the SageMaker model running in SageMaker. Let's click the tree for the sake of it, and we've got tree. All right, excellent, fantastic. Now I'm going to set up whilst we have a bit of a chat, and we celebrate the fact that that even worked. Paxton, come on, man, it worked. Celebrating that, I'm going to put a link to this so you can actually do this yourself, and we'll do a bit more testing as well. And Jeff, thanks for sitting through that while I did that.
Absolutely, that was fun.
I'm going to send you I'm going to send you the link as well. How do I get this? So what I'm going to do, if you're going to paste this around and we can have a play. Paxton, have we got any questions that have come in whilst we've been doing this as well?
Yes, we have. Well, a little bit of maybe a disagreement with, I think, your earlier comment. So Matthew said you might want to stick with the 80 times 86 Lambda function, or you might not get as good a performance. I can't verify whether that's true or not.
Well,
I'll let you two comment on that.
No, that's really interesting insight. Honestly, I haven't played around with them very much, so I know that they are supposed to be cheaper. In this particular case, the Lambda function's doing so little work. Really, all it's doing is it's just taking a bunch of bytes and it's just shoving it at the SageMaker endpoint. So maybe in this particular case, because it's cheaper and it's not doing much, maybe that's a reason to use it. But yeah, fair comment. And honestly, it's the first time I've used one, because these have been out for all of a week or two, not much. We'll have to reach out to Ben. Ben Kehoe knows all about serverless stuff. He'll be able to tell us, give us the lowdown on there as well. But thank you.
Yeah, another question from Roberto, which I mean, Jeff, you got into this a little bit in terms of starting with your domain expertise and kind of going from there. But I think there might be a couple different answers to it. But what's the best way to start learning machine learning? I mean, Jeff, I know, for example, you have a ton of certificates, for example. Any other thoughts, or Mike, anything to add there?
These videos are a great way. I mean, since you're here, you're already on the right track. Take an exercise like this, do it, walk through it, and then expand on it. Say, hey, what else can I do? How can I improve this? How can we get better performance? Or can we look at and have it identify different types of pictures? So just take what you've done and keep adding to it. And if you can try to solve real world problems, for example, like the Amazon Deep Lens camera does object recognition. It's a great way to get started. And, it's really cool when it highlights people, when you walk by. So anything like that is a great way to get into it.
Nice. No, I appreciate that. Okay. Here we go. Hopefully, oh no, you can't see it. Sorry, I'm looking at it, and then nobody else is looking at it. So on my screen here, I've got my mouse is somewhere. Where is my mouse? How strange. The mouse has disappeared, but I can see that it's there. Hooray! Okay, now you can see my actual phone. So this is my phone right here, although it's currently locked itself. There you go. So live. There you go. It's proof. There you go. So we're doing an actual test here. Wow. I'm hoping that this is going to work with the lighting level that I've got. In front of me here, I have. Let's choose an image. Here we have picture of a tree. By the way, I popped this, the link to this there. Thank you. If you're happy to, well, it's truncated, so you can't write it there, but the link is in the chat at the moment. So feel free to go. I'd be interested to know what phones you've got and if you're able to make this work. So I'm going to click browse. You can see this, take photo. Try not to show too much of my messy room. But there you can see live picture there. Click that. Come on, send it off. And it comes back tree. Fantastic. Such a basic app, but it brings me such joy for this to work. Let's have another go. So what the interesting thing from here is to do more tests to see where it will stop working, right? So if I, for example, that's worked, even with a slight amount of the cup of tea in the background there. But if I was to use, say, the hot dog, take the photograph of this, put it sideways and have lots of other things in the background, I'm assuming that probably won't work. It might say, oh, it says tree. Yeah, see, so it's not going to say, I don't know. It's going to tell you what it thinks it might be, but it could be really low confidence. If you're interested in digging into the console printout in the browser, it will actually give you the 3 values. So those 3 output values, and you'll see which one it's taking the maximum of. It obviously is really unsure because this has never been trained with that sort of other stuff in the background, right? It's only ever been trained with a clear image. So oh, my phone's locked. There we go. So if I just take it again, what about if I do it closer up with a shadow on its side? Will that work? No, see, it says T. And honestly, that doesn't surprise me. We knew that there were going to be limitations, but if I go back to the fairly regular kind of picture, then it says hot dog. And so, this is a simple model, and this gives us the opportunity now to expand upon this and make this better. We could make this much more comprehensive, where it will work with an icon of with these icons just laid out on a table. We need to tell it and need to train it that that's okay. So these kinds of things are all possible. Other steps that we could go to from here as well is we could do some actual drawing a bounding box around it inside of the actual user interface on the phone as well. So we could do what we call object detection. We could do that as well. So there's a number of different places we could go to from here, but it is working and works on iPhone 7 Plus. Thank you, Brooke, for that. So I'd be really interested to know if anybody's having a go at actually taking these images or just working with the built-in ones in the app. That's fine. Maybe what I should do, here we go. This is an experiment. Brooke, you've got your phone there and it's working. Okay, we're going to do an experiment here. I'm going to throw this up full screen and see if you can actually take an image off of the live stream. You're going to have to try and get it without any of the this is such weird. If anybody joins the live stream right now and sees this, what are they going to be thinking? I don't know if it's kind of in focus, isn't it? All right, Brooke, I hope you're still there, and I hope you've managed to do that. We'll see if that actually works. Not what I expected to be doing today, but yeah, so super happy that it works. So yeah, all the way end to end, we have the application working.
So Mike, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So when Google or whoever serves you the reCAPTCHA, like confirm you're a human and spot the spotlight or the cars, I mean, is that essentially you're helping create better training data and then that gets fed into different things, or is that not true?
So there's a lot of that going on, right? So in the world, if you ever see a well-priced, very smart piece of technology, it is not a bad idea to sort of take a stand back, look at it and say, what is this actually about? And you're absolutely right. So certainly in the early days of reCAPTCHA, you're essentially helping to train someone's models to be able to figure out what things were. Obviously, it's clever how they do it, right, though. It worked. Thank you, Brooke. Awesome. That was great to see. So that's amazing. So yeah, and one place where that happens, right, and let's not pretend otherwise, is with the Amazon Echo device, which I won't say the name of because I don't want to set it off in a million houses around the world right now. I have mine down here, but I always make sure that I mute it before I go and do one of these things. But that's it's an amazing service. You can build great apps on top of it. We use it all the time in this house. And what are we doing? It's essentially very low cost. You buy this thing and then the service is free. What it is it's training up one of the best voice recognition models that exists, because we're giving away our data for it to train. And and other providers do this as well. Absolutely. It's this big race to data. What we've talked about very early on with this, I think I said then, and I say now, and I say many things about machine learning being easy. It's the data that's hard. And getting data and curating the data and having quality data, it's really expensive. And so, yeah, lots of services out there are basically built off the concept of how can we provide something to you so that you'll give us data so that we can make a really good model. So absolutely. I don't know how that applies to this potentially, but but it is a fact. It is a thing. And I think, I'd like to build this out into maybe detecting actual cups of tea and actual hot dogs, because if for no other reason than I want a whole bunch of hot dogs in this room. Pro game fixers. Respect on the name. Maybe you can let us know where you actually are, but it works. Thank you very much for letting us know. So Jeff, let's talk a little bit about NLP now as well, while we've got you here. So natural language processing. So we talked there about, machine learning. It's all about data. It's about data manipulation and finding insights in those data sets. Natural language processing, maybe that's where we take this whole series next. I mean, we'll talk more about where we want to go next in a short while. But Jeff, talk to us about some of the things that natural language processing can do. And the cool things it can do, and the cool projects people can start up.
Absolutely. And a lot of this stuff, or all of the stuff that you just said in machine learning, applies to NLP as well. Getting the data is the hard part, getting that good data. So you have the same problems both ways. Yeah, so in NLP, it focuses on getting information from natural language text, and natural language text is just the text that you and I would write and speak, so completely unstructured. And projects that are based in natural language processing are things like sentiment analysis, where you want to determine if a piece of text is positive or negative. Think of like an Amazon product review. Given some reviews, can we predict if this is a 1-star or a 5-star review? Or you can predict the sentiment of tweets to see how people in a geographic area feel about a topic. You can do things like identifying people's names in text, it sounds simple, but identifying people's names is a very challenging problem. And there's been a lot of really neat headway made in those areas in the past couple of years. So in my opinion, it's a great time to get involved in machine learning and NLP, because the advances along with GPUs in the recent years have just been fantastic.
Yeah, the availability of infrastructure in the cloud obviously has unlocked all of this, right? That's no secret as well. Like over the last 5 years, all of these products have come out and all of this capability has come out. The technology, the algorithms in some cases have been known about for decades, but we haven't really been able to build upon them because we just haven't had the ease of access to high power compute to actually make some of this stuff happen. It's interesting what you're saying about NLP there as well. So you've got services from AWS, which are the AI services, which things like comprehend, which do a lot of this stuff, but they abstract you away from some of that, the nuance of how it actually works. And so I really enjoy digging in deep, right? So like recognition, you could train recognition up to do what we've just done here, but you don't get a sense of how it actually works. And when you actually want to take it to the next level and do something a little bit more specific and bespoke to you. So we are diving down here, and yeah, with Apache OpenNLP and projects like that, being able to actually hack on it yourself, I think is pretty cool as well. So yeah, look, so we kind of got to that point now in this series where we've actually built something, and because and that's the title, right? Let's build something. So finally we've actually got to the end. We've actually built something. Let's put it back up because I enjoy looking at it. And I said people are now connecting with me on LinkedIn. Thank you. Do that. Didn't actually think to. What about if I take a picture of myself? It's going to say. I'm almost thinking it's going to say it's a cup of tea. There we go, tea. And I think that's because it's sort of like the default one it goes to, the model falls over and it says it's tea. I'm being unfair. We knew that wouldn't work. We kind of got to that point now where we've actually built something. It's working. It's simple, but it works. And now is the opportunity to take it on to the next step. And so I want to throw this back out to the community. I want to throw it out to the chat that we've got running right now as well, as to what you would like to see next. So when I say this is the end of the series, it's the end of this particular build. We've built something. Would you like to carry on with this and make it more comprehensive? We could go to do something like, as I was talking about before, drawing a bounding box around these images. So we go to object detection, the next level on. Would you like to have a look at some natural language processing? Hey, we could hit Jeff up, and I'm just completely throwing him under the bus now and say, hey, kind of keep coming back for the next.
I would love it. I would totally love it. Yeah, let's build something.
So, like, what would you like to do next? So, throw a comment in the chat now. Throw a comment under the video. Get in touch with me on LinkedIn as well if you have some thoughts and ideas and suggestions. I can see us, like I said, running around to different cafes, taking pictures of actual hot dogs and stuff. Is it building up data sets? Is it talking to more people? Is that what you'd like to do as well? Throwing this back out to you to see what you'd like to do next. Yeah, we'll take that conversation offline, I think is the way that we say it. So there you go. I'll leave this link up and running for a while so that you can play around with it some more. Please share it around as well for what it's worth. Although at some point it will stop working and it will look kind of disappointing because it will just sit there going, I don't know what you're talking about. But you know how to build one yourself now as well. So yeah, I think maybe we've reached the end of the live stream and the end of the series. Jeff, thanks so much for making time to help me out, help me fill the gaps of like, oh my gosh, it's not working. Only one mistake this time, right? So it was.
You can't count that. Absolutely, that was too quick.
Cause is always the thing. If you look in the instructions, by the way, anybody who's following along, if you look in the note instructions, which sort of is a companion to what we've just done here, then it absolutely says, maybe even in capitals, don't forget to do the cause bit. And of course I did. So, so yes. Paxton, thanks so much for stepping in last moment. I know Safdar's off with his family. He's enjoying some time away, traveling around somewhere or another. We'll have to get him to tell us where he's been. Thank you very much for stepping in.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Cool. And thank you, everybody, for joining in this live stream. Thank you all for being in the chat as well. And until the next time, keep building things, and we'll see you then.